Today's podcast is brought to you by A Foreign Affair with Edward Green and Wes Bradshaw. They've given up American football to bring the best European soccer coverage that two gents in the States with no connections can. That's A Foreign Affair, the all-new sports show podcast. Get it on Apple Podcasts today.
Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Kavanagh and welcome to the After Extra Time podcast where we talk about the big news, the big games and the big players in the English Premier League. I'm joined by my co-hosts, journalist, Manchester United fan, editor-in-chief of the Sports Bank, author of Transatlantic Passage, How the Premier League Redefines Soccer in America, Mr. Paul Banks. How you going, Paul?
Doing well, man. Great to be here. Happy deadline day. Happy day after deadline day.
Absolutely. And this week we have a special guest. He is the co-host of the brilliant Insert Name FC podcast alongside Edward Robles, Mr. Hector Flores. Welcome to the podcast, Hector.
Thanks, man. I kind of wish I had like extra accolades. This guy's over here written a book and I'm just a co-host of a podcast.
So thanks for joining us, Hector. Why don't you tell us where your allegiances lie with regards to the Premier League, just to let all the listeners out there know what side of the fence you stand on.
Unfortunately, I am an Arsenal fan. So.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, geez.
See, I told you, Stu. I told you. This is the exact reaction I get. No one gives me, oh man, Arsenal fucking sucks. None of that. I get the pity party. It's like, oh, how you doing, buddy? Are you good? Do you need water?
You know, we're here for you. Just know that you're in a friendly place.
It's a safe place, Hector. Don't worry.
Do I have a disease that I don't know of?
Yeah, it's called Arsenalitis, mate. And
I think it's called Stan Kroenke.
And how are you doing, Paul? I've got to ask, how'd the book signing go up for those last weekend? Must have been a great atmosphere when Greenwood banged in the winner for your boys.
Yeah, the first half atmosphere was kind of rough because I really feel like Wolves took it to them and really dominated that game. And in the end, I feel like United really kind of escaped with one, but it got going. It was rocking when Mace slotted that one home, and my first book signing ever. And I admit I did not sleep as well as I wanted to the night before. Felt kind of nervous, but I was in a safe space. I was in a safe place. I was with my own people, and it was a good one for me to warm up on because we're going to take this tour to the Arsenal pub and the Chelsea pub and to some other non-soccer stuff later down the road in a few weeks, and it went really well. Sales were good.
So sales were good. Did you get cramps in your hand from signing too many?
That's the funnest part for me of the personalizations. When somebody, like, the very first purchase was from a City fan, and I wrote in the inscription, I'm like, I'm harder on you guys than anyone else. So in this book, I said I'm harsher on you, so be ready. And then, there's some English guys there, and some guy who just moved here from Alabama, and then you get like, oh, this one's for my father, or this one's for my cousin or whatever. So you get, to me, that's the funnest part. I enjoy the personalizations.
So here we go, boys. This is the part all those listeners out there have been waiting for. It's the summer transfer window bonanza. We promised a big special, Paul, for the listeners. And we're going to go in depth. We're going to have a real deep dive, have a look, see who won, see who lost the window. So let's go. Let's just go around the table. Who have you got winning the window, Hector?
It's going to be an interesting one, but I personally actually liked what Aston Villa did with this transfer window, adding a player like Emiliano Buendia. Wow, I'm Hispanic and I'm already butchering Hispanic names. Leon Bailey and Danny Ings. I feel Leon Bailey, it's time for him to see what he could do in the Premier League. The Jamaican is personally because I get to watch him because I'm part of the CONCACAF nation. Um, he's such a fun player to watch, and he's done great at Bayern Leverkusen. But I want to see what he can do in the Premier League. Yeah, it's Aston Villa. It's not necessarily one of the big clubs in there, but I think they did some really good moves, especially with Leon Bailey. And honestly, the move that I really liked from this was getting Danny Ings. I think Danny Ings is such an underrated player in the English Premier League. Yes, he's a journeyman, but I mean, there's a reason why clubs try to get his services. And honestly, from all this, just yeah, they lost Jack Grealish, and I mean, it was gonna happen, but I mean, they still have some money in their pockets at the end of the day with that big transfer from Jack Grealish.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more with your point on Danny Ings. I think there was a period there when he was being linked with Manchester City, wasn't he?
I feel like he gets linked everywhere.
Yeah. So he's a guaranteed 20-goal a season striker if he can stay fit, and I think it's a great pickup. It is an interesting choice. Aston Villa, definitely outside of the box. Paul, who do you think won the window?
Well, I'm definitely gonna say something kind of related to that, in that I just thought a perfectly executed piece of business all around was Jack Grealish to Manchester City, because Aston Villa, not only did they get a massive sale, they seem to be in a good place after losing their club captain, which sounds crazy. It's a bit like the Bill Simmons, the famous Ewing theory, where a team becomes better when they lose their best player. Manchester City got a luxury signing. They got a guy who's now in a class all by himself. He's the only 100 million Great British Pounds player, so he's a record setter. So that, I think, worked out well for everyone involved. Although City's transfer window, I think, was lacking. I agree with everything you said, Hector, about Villa's window. Also have to touch upon, I think Chelsea did a lot of great business. They didn't buy much, but they didn't have to, because last summer they were the only people spending at a time when no one else was. So they had a lot from last summer. They got the one thing they needed in a number 9 in Lukaku. And of course, they did a great job in selling off some of the excess players. And I can't end the segment without mentioning United, of course, and Ronaldo coming home. I mean, what a finale to this window.
I was shocked that you didn't lead with that, Paul. I thought you would have been beside yourself that CR7 is back home. Huge piece of business.
And who would have thought that United get a wing player who's they've wanted for 2 years? It's been one of the most tedious transfer sagas of all time in Jadon Sancho. And he ends up not only being he's not even the most heralded guy they got this summer in his own position group. I mean, Ronaldo, yeah, I mean, I didn't lead with that because, I mean, I think we've all gotten all the Ronaldo coverage we could ask for. And I am excited about it. And I think that's where, you kind of go forward with people like, well, how is United going to slot everyone in? Where's they going to play? Well, Ronaldo plays and Sancho plays every game that means something. And then you go from there.
Yep, that's a great point. I love your pick of Jack Grealish too.
No, yeah, I mean, I think with the Jack Grealish signing, yeah, it's just straight up luxury. I mean, I mean, Jack Grealish is a great player, nothing against him, but I thought at this point where Man City's at, it was pretty clear to get the guy up front. But I mean, Jack Grealish is a pretty good move nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubting his talent. There's no doubting the luxury signing aspect of it must be nice for Manchester City. My club, Liverpool, doesn't have the luxury of making luxury signings. Anyway, great pick, Paul. Great pick, Hector. I'm grateful that we've all picked something different because I've gone one a little bit outside of the box also. Avid listeners to the podcast or readers of my articles on the sportsbank.net will know how low my expectations have been for Crystal Palace. I'm now in a position where I think I may have to walk that back. They've had an incredible summer transfer window. I think I might have judged the staff and Coach Patrick Vieira and their abilities to rebuild what was essentially a broken squad a little too harshly. There's a couple of aspects to this. The first aspect is, I don't know if you boys noticed, but this is the first summer transfer window in God knows how long that Wilfred Zaha either hasn't been a target of a so-called Big Six club, or he hasn't been angling for a move. I can't remember the last time that happened.
This is the first time. This is because obviously we all keep track of what's going on, and yeah, this is the first time I did not hear anything Wilfred Zaha, not through any rumor mill, not even like through the fake rumor. Like the ones that just try to get a headline, even if it's false. Like even they weren't even saying anything about Wilfred Zaha.
Yeah, that's true. That nothing was going on and he wasn't going anywhere. Even the back pages, the tabloids weren't even wasting their time on that.
Yeah. So this is I'm going into the weeds a little bit here. I'm maybe squinting to kind of see what I want to see. But they have gone from having one of the oldest squads in the league at an average age of almost 30 to having an average age of closer to 27. But they've trimmed a full 2 years off their entire squad's average age, and that is no mean feat.
No, yeah, that's really good. I mean, I think 27, to have that be your age average is really good. That means you have like a good combination of experience and youth. So I mean, is Crystal Palace going to finish in the top 6? I wouldn't hold my breath on it, but they're definitely going to be a team that could be a dark horse in this season.
Yeah, if the goal is to just stay up, then I think they're going to be fine. If the goal is to be mid-table, that could happen too. But I wouldn't. I'm impressed. I think they did do good business, but I'm not ready to, consider them to be contenders for even the expanded European field.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not suggesting that. I agree wholeheartedly with both of you guys. I think I had such low expectations. I did not see him moving off the bottom of the table for the entire season. I didn't rate Patrick Vieira. I didn't rate his ability to do this rebuild. But now I'm kind of second guessing it. I can see them maybe surviving, which, is high praise coming from me. And it's not as if they've just bought youth for youth's sake. Michael Olise is a huge talent. Anyone who saw him playing for Reading in the Championship last season can attest to that. I mean, if you've seen the games last weekend, Conor Gallagher scored 2 goals on loan from Chelsea, so he's not a long-term one. But, there's just another young talent getting around there. Will Hughes, I was very surprised. I was like, oh, here we go. Here's the 30-plus-year-old guy that they've signed. And even though it seems like he's been around forever, maybe it's, my expanded football manager history with him. But he's still only 26 years old, and he's just reaching the prime of his career, and they've managed to sign him. And then, obviously, the coup de grace was the deadline day signing of Odsonne Eddard, who finally gives them a different look going forward. The tight old approach with Benteke or Jordan Ayew hopefully is a thing of the past. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think he can be a 20-goal-a-season striker for him.
I can see that.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential.
All right, now let's move on to the other end of the scale, the not so nice end of the scale, shall we? And let's talk about who lost the window. Now, I'm going to preface my pick by just defending myself and saying I'm a big Liverpool fan. I love Liverpool. I wholeheartedly believe in what the club is doing and Jurgen Klopp's ability to improve from within. But I don't think there's any question that Liverpool, certainly, if they didn't lose the window, which I think they did, they definitely missed the trick by not being a little bit more active in the window.
I think the only club that was a bigger loser this transfer window is not even a Premier League club, and that's Barcelona. I definitely want to hit out at Arsenal because I'm not sure what they were really doing, but at least Arsenal spent money and tried. The Liverpool writer for my site, the Liverpool fan, he will completely agree with you. He's extremely disappointed. It was just lifeless. Credit to them signing somebody at a position that they definitely needed. It was their position of greatest need, but he's not even a first choice guy. So
no, yeah, I think for sure the goal should have been to solidify that second center back spot. No offense to to the counterpoint for Van Dijk. But I don't think Liverpool was necessarily in a situation where they needed to go out and get somebody. If anything, a luxury move probably would have been the thing. But I mean, when you look at Liverpool's front three, Firmino and Salah and Mane, you feel very confident. Midfield. I mean, I think they also secured a lot of players. Jordan Henderson was a player that they gave an extension as well. And you got to think about those moves as well. The players that they chose to extend. So I think Liverpool, I wouldn't say they're the losers. I mean, as far as like making any transactions, like besides just that one center back that you guys don't even, even myself, I don't deem over as a starter. But I think for sure this probably could have been forgiven if they would have just gotten a solidified, experienced center back to pair with Van Dijk. Because I don't think that Liverpool really needed to make any like drastic moves aside from the center back spot.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I've got to say, I was really surprised that they didn't replace Gini Wijnaldum, a guy that played so many minutes over the past couple of years, played so many games. I felt like he was integral to the way that we play. I guess the thinking is between Thiago and the young fella Harvey Elliott, who I am supremely excited about. Stay tuned to future episodes of this podcast if you want to hear me wax lyrical on Harvey Elliott. I think the idea is to have those two players kind of fill that role that Wijnaldum was playing. But for me, Liverpool were definitely the losers of the transfer window. They're playing a risky game. If you don't make the moves, you get left behind. And I'm just fearful that the African Cup of Nations, when Salah and Mane go away, and just any injury to that first 11 or the 2 or 3 players on the bench who can slot in seamlessly, is going to leave us very, very vulnerable. But enough droning on about that. Paul, tell me who your loser of the transfer window is.
Well, I'm going to deviate a bit and not pick a club, and I'm going to pick an individual player, and that's Harry Kane. I know he was asked about what he thinks about his legacy or his image and all that stuff, how it's going to be affected by what happened, and he gave a pretty good answer. I think he handled that well. He said, well, people don't know the goings on in football. They don't understand the money and all that. And, I think that is kind of true in a way. I don't think the biggest losses for Harry Kane are going to be to his image, although, he did kind of he had an ugly holdout there for a while. I think the bigger problem is he's aging. It's not going to be long until he's on the other side of 30. And I just saw that I feel like he kind of got played. I feel like maybe he felt he had a gentleman's agreement with Daniel Levy that this was going to be his chance. And he didn't understand that in a world like this, where the stakes are high and the money is big, a gentleman's agreement doesn't mean anything. And, you could say that City were losers in this, but I think Manchester City are going to be just fine. I think they're going to come after Erling Haaland next summer. But for Kane, I mean, a great player, still no trophies.
Yeah, I do think you've hit the nail on the head there. The gentleman's agreement doesn't mean squat in this current climate, or in soccer in general. I suppose you want to get that stuff in your contract.
Oh yeah, I think Harry Kane definitely. This is kind of like a shot himself in the foot kind of moment where, he made it clear that he did not want to come back to Tottenham, and you saw Man City making their push. Even almost was going to give him more than what Jack Grealish got. Well, actually didn't get. The club was going to get. But I mean, you would expect that Harry Kane would have made that move, because I mean that's a no-brainer. Man City, if you want to get some titles, if that's the end all be all for him, then of course you're gonna get that with Man City. But he ends up staying at Tottenham. I mean, it's gonna be, I think at least initially, gonna be a little bit awkward, especially all that had came in with him not showing up to practice, just the little things that came into play. You can even see the Tottenham fans kind of chirping when they got their 1-0 win against Man City. So it's going to take a while. I mean, it's not going to take long. Once Harry Kane scores a few goals, it's going to be back to normal. But, if his goal was to win titles and compete for the Champions League, not for the UEFA Conference League, then he should have jumped. He should have took the advantage when he could. Because honestly, Harry Kane, something that me and Edward say on Insert Name FC. He's essentially England's Robert Lewandowski. It's just that he doesn't have any titles.
A good analogy. I like that. Yeah.
I do have like just another angle here. It is risky business from Harry Kane because it is a little bit all change at Spurs as well. So he's angled for this move to City, right? Not shown up to practice, like Hector mentioned. Kind of damaged his reputation with the fans, like Paul said. And you guys are both right. Once he starts banging in the goals, all will be forgiven with the fans because that's all the fans care about. They want to win. They want to see their best players scoring goals. He's angled for this move to City, which hasn't panned out. There's a new coaching staff at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with Nuno Espirito
Santo. Great name, by the way. Great.
And, it does seem like Son has really adapted to the system that Santo's trying to implement there. And do you guys think that there's any chance that Harry Kane potentially could be left behind?
For me, it's just at the end of it, kind of like it's England's Robert Lewandowski. Like this is the guy up top for England. All the things you can say. Like if Christian Pulisic is Captain America, then Harry Kane is Captain England. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, like I don't see anybody that you could probably put on in that position over Harry Kane. Because to be honest, I don't think that they made any moves at the striker position, at least enough to say like, oh yeah, we're gonna put this guy over Harry Kane, and have people believe it. But you gotta remember, Heung-min Son even was giving out some ultimatums as well to Tottenham, because even he had those thoughts of hey, if Harry Kane's out the door, I'm going right with him. So I don't know. I'm not sure if he was gonna go to Man City, but elsewhere, but. I think because we saw what Nuno Espirito Santo's style is. I mean, you saw how Wolverhampton kind of changed how that team was. I mean, basically it's Portugal, but but you see that style of play, how it works. I think Adama Traore is like a prime example of how that attack worked. Because I mean, not many people were talking about Traore, and now this guy's playing for Spain. So. I think the system is gonna work for them, but we'll definitely see how Harry Kane. But I think Harry Kane's gonna fit in just fine.
Yeah, they've gotten used to playing without him, and they know how to, and they can survive. But that doesn't mean that they've taken on a whole new identity, and that's what it's going to be when he leaves Tottenham. I mean, he's so much ingrained to who they are. 150 million pounds seem kind of ridiculous, but. If they would have gotten 120, I don't see why you would have said no to that, especially because he's not in his early 20s. So your return on your investment is going to go down, or even 100 million, like what Grealish got. Just take that and start to invest in it. But until that day comes, he's still the main man.
Remain the main man at Tottenham. I think I do agree with that, but I just felt like it bore asking the question because of Tottenham's the only team with a 100% win record in the Premier League, albeit after only 3 match days. Hector, let me know who you think lost the transfer window, buddy.
It's gonna hurt me, but it's the truth though. It's Arsenal. I mean, it's Arsenal. I mean, there's no. I mean, how do you spend so much money and basically still have the same lineup from last season? Like, the only thing that's maybe slightly different was Ben White starting at center back. But aside from that, it's essentially the same roster from last season, the same lineup and everything. I mean, the guys that they did again, they got Nuno Tavares, they got Albert Sambi Lakanga, Ben White, Aaron Ramsdale, and Takahiro Tamiyuso. I think those are the names that I'm going to highlight. I'm not going to list all of them, but these are the names I like. There's potential there, and those guys could be something. But Ben White is the only one that at least enticed me initially, just because he does have some experience playing in the Premier League. He had some starts at least, whereas the other guys, they were playing elsewhere, and you're going off of potential. But Ben White is still a guy with potential. He has to go out there and play at the expectations of Arsenal, which even though it seems pretty low, there's still high expectations amongst the fans. Crazy enough as that sounds. And I mean, Aaron Ramsdale, he's a backup goalkeeper. Even the way Arsenal has been playing, like I think Leno is still safe, and it's mainly because of the fact that most of the goals have come off of just terrible defensive errors. And funny enough, as we add Ben White, there's still no solution to the center back spot, which has been a long going issue. Yes, they got Martin Odegaard back, which is great to hear, but there was so many things still missing with this Arsenal team. And like I said, it's basically the same roster, except you just add Ben White. I think up front, you're fine with Aubameyang. In the midfield, there's still a massive question mark. I hate seeing Granit Xhaka. Like if you guys listen to me on Insert Name FC, I go on tangents about how much I hate Granit Xhaka.
You would have loved that red card on the weekend then?
Oh yeah, this is what I tell Edward every time, because every once in a while, Granit Xhaka goes ahead and scores like some off the wall type goal, and then there was like, all right, is all forgiven? I was like, no, because he's gonna get a red card in the next 3 games. So I mean, I was like, no, not all is forgiven. No, I've been wanting Xhaka out, and it's crazy that they extended him. That's another reason why they lost, is because they extended Xhaka. But you have issues in the center back position. You have issues in the midfield. The only thing that I feel confident is up front, and that's because you have Saka, Aubameyang, and Martinelli or Pepe. Hopefully we see Pepe. I mean, how much money they spend on him, and they don't really use him. And then I like the promise of Smith Rowe. I like what Odegaard can bring, but there's still issues in the midfield. And then what's crazy enough is that you let Guendouzi go on loan to Martial as well as William Saliba, and these guys are like people that expect them to be really good players for France, and you keep sending them out on loan. I think at this point I'm more open to have Guendouzi starting in these games. And same thing, let's see what Saliba can do. And then the other thing that personally hurt me, because I'm a big fan of Lucas Torreira, but you sent him back out on loan in Fiorentina. But there's kind of some issues. There's some friction going on between the club and Lucas, which is crazy to think that in general, there's just a lot of friction amongst the players and the club. You had what's going on with Maitland-Niles, which apparently has been buffered out. But, that's not a good to see. And then, yeah, you went out and spent, and that's great. But then when you look at the roster and it's almost the same thing, did you really make a big transfer?
At the end of the window, how much did they spend?
221 million.
Is that just outlay, Paul, or is that net spent?
That's outlay. Joe Willock got up to 31 million. All those, you had something, these other guys went out on loan. Other guys left for free. Crazy as it sounds, like, why did Willian tear up his contract and go away from all that guaranteed money to leave Arsenal? Arsenal is that bad. Things are just that terrible that Willian's going to give away 20 million pounds.
I've got to tell you, you're not going to like listening to this, Hector, but when he gave was it Corinthians that he signed for in the Brazilian league? So when he gave his interview, he said he didn't want to finish his career not winning trophies. So
I don't blame him, honestly. I mean, the whole Willian plan, I wasn't even for it at the beginning. And then that whole interview about that Mikel Arteta told Willian that he's here to help him win a Champions League title, which I started laughing as I was reading that, because I was like, that's not happening. Not the way this right now, not how this club is right now. I think Stan Kroenke has been feeling the pressure because, first of all, with all the Super League crap that's been coming, but now, you've had people constantly with the hashtag Kroenke out. I think at one point Kroenke out was actually trending on Twitter. That's how bad it was. And so he thought, oh, okay, let me just spend more, even though you spend more, but you didn't go get players that's going to help play now. Like, yeah, I listed some promising players that maybe they could be something, but Arsenal fans are right now, we're done with potential. We want guys that can come in and start right away and directly impact this club, so that Arsenal's back to their glory years. Bring them back to the years of back in the 80s and 90s where this club was actually good. This was Arsenal at one point was the standard of the English Premier League, and now it's the laughingstock.
That was kind of going to be my question: is what is the answer? How much of it is Arteta is the problem? How much of it is Freddie is the problem? How much of it is the crankies are the problem? And you kind of touched on it there.
Honestly, I think it's a combination of it all. I think at this point, I don't know who believes in Arteta. As far as an Arsenal fan goes, I don't know about the players. Obviously, I'm not in the locker room. I can't tell you for that. But I know the fans are tired. I think they're done with the process. You know, they want results. And right now, Arteta's not giving you results.
So just so we can make this good, do you believe Arteta can turn this around?
I don't. I really don't at this point. Was I excited about Arteta? You know, it's funny because you'll hear it on our episode on Friday, but you know, I was like, Arteta isn't necessarily, you know, this should have not been his first job. And I was telling Edward that like maybe he should have been with like a team with a mid-table team, and then we took like both took like a really brief pause, and then we're like, I guess Arsenal is a mid-table team. But but kind of what I was saying was a team that doesn't have the expectations of Arsenal. Like even Arsenal can have like one of the worst like rosters in the entire Premier League. The expectations are still going to be high every single year by the Arsenal fans. Crazy as it is, like they're still going to be we're still like Arsenal fans are still going to be realistic about it. But at the end of the day, like there's expectations every single year.
That's interesting. That's a point that you've made on your podcast in the past, because Paul and I did a bit of a deep dive on the Arteta and Arsenal situation last week on the podcast, and I think that was kind of our findings. The rebuild required at Arsenal is probably too big of a job for a rookie manager.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot for him, but at the same time, I think for any manager, this is not the ideal situation. Like, if they were to fire Arteta and bring in, I don't know, Antonio Conte, I don't think he's necessarily, not that he's not a terrible manager. I just don't think that, once again, that front office, that the ownership, like I don't think they're going to be able to support and give Conte what he needs to, because I mean, Conte, if you think of Conte, you think of him being a defensive mastermind. And I mean, when you look at this defense, I don't necessarily see anything masterful about it, especially the way Lukaku manhandled Pablo Mari. And like I told Edward, a practice cone probably would have been a better defender than Mari at that time.
Oof.
But it gave you the same result. So I mean,
good point.
At this point, I think it's right now. I don't think Arsenal is necessarily the most enticing job right now if you're a manager, but it's gonna take somebody that can get through the heads of Stan Kroenke and just everybody up top to really understand what it's gonna take to get Arsenal back on top.
So Lucas Torreira, what's the story with Lucas Torreira? Why is he being farmed out on loan? Why isn't he? He's a great defensive midfielder. Why is he not playing for Arsenal?
That's a good question.
When I was doing my research for this podcast, I was surprised that he was even still on the books at Arsenal. I thought he'd been moved on.
From what I when I remember initially, I know he was last season. He was on loan at Atletico Madrid, winning trophy, something he's not going to get over here. And you know, obviously, I believe he had I think it was the passing of his mother back in Uruguay, and I know that he was trying to talk to Arsenal about a possible move to Boca Junior in Argentina so he could be near family. So I know that was going on, but Arsenal wasn't necessarily I don't think, from what I was reading, wasn't really listening to him, which is crazy. I mean, I personally, I would prefer. I love Torreira. I mean, honestly, like I have his jersey. Like that was, as soon as they signed Torreira, I was excited. I was like, all right, I like this player. This guy has heart. Like even when I watch him on the field, everything he does, I like him. He if there's one thing that I like about him, is just the fact that he puts everything out on the field, and that's what I like to see. Which is not something you get that very often from Xhaka. But I'm a bad Xhaka whenever I get a chance, just like but no, yeah, it's really crappy. I hate how they've handled that situation, because at this point, if you're not going to play him on your team, because I mean, he's a center defensive midfielder. That's kind of something that needs to be on this team. Do I think he would have helped against Lukaku? Probably not. But especially when size is concerned. But he'll definitely it's not the size, it's not the size of the dog, is the size of the fight in the dog. But if you're Lukaku, I don't know if that heart's gonna be enough.
No, I'm a big fan of Torreira for those very reasons,
Yeah, no, he's a great player. I mean, I'm supportive for him, so hopefully he can do well over at Fiorentina. But I mean, if Arsenal's not gonna play him, they should just made a transfer for him, because someone's gonna want him. That clearly Fiorentina was able to jump on it.
Within reason, so no going out and buying Messi or Mbappe or Neymar or anything. If you could buy one more player, I guess it's a little bit different for you, Paul, because your mob did buy Cristiano Ronaldo. But if you could buy one player for your team, who would you buy, Paul?
I think they need a middle of the park kind of guy, a Michael Carrick type, a good defensive midfielder. I'm not really sure who that would be. I'm not sure. The guy on Rennes who went to Real Madrid instead, Eduardo Camavinga, may have been a good prospect. He's only 18 though. They were kind of linked with Saul maybe, but he's still not even going to be in the first team in Chelsea, so I'm not sure if that would have been the answer. What I can tell you is definitely what position they need, but I don't know who that guy is exactly. And
so just to be clear, you're saying United need a defensive midfielder?
Yes, I think the number one need entering the summer was center back. They took care of that. Felt the number two need was a right-sided attacking player. Obviously, they got that. You could also make a case that competition for Aaron Wan-Bissaka at right back was a need, but Kieran Trippier is not an answer in my opinion. How much Atletico wanted for him was egregious, and I would have took a pass on that. So, yeah, Nemanja Matic is aging. He was great in his day. Fred is at his moments, but overall, I'd consider Fred kind of a flop. But you got Scott McTominay back there, and he's great at what he does. But I think he needs help.
I would have definitely said Manuel Locatelli would have been a great center defensive midfielder to be brought into Manchester United.
Yeah, big time hero of the Euros. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't go in for him. I felt it just seemed like I don't. That would have been a good addition. I don't know why what they didn't see that we see.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was just playing at Sampdoria before this transfer window, before the Euros, wasn't he?
He was with Sassuolo.
Sassuolo. I know it was a S team. And now he's moved on to Juventus, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
I think that's really it. I think it was kind of by design that, here's this hero in the national team, plays for not even like a second tier team in that league. They're never up there competing with anybody. And I think it was just kind of assumed that, Juventus is where he's going.
Well, I mean, Arsenal was battling with Juventus, but I mean, clearly didn't work out.
That's because Arsenal's going to sign Kylian Mbappe in January.
Yeah. Also, just to your point, you mentioned it briefly when you were making your choice there, Paul. How is Saul? He's linked with every club in England, just about all the big clubs in England, except for Chelsea. Deadline day rolls around, he signs for Chelsea. What the hell's up with that?
I think that was the case of Chelsea kind of woke up and said, hey, yeah, we broke our club record. Yeah, we signed the most expensive Serie A player ever, but we didn't do anything else. And I think the fact that it's a loan with an option to buy is what made that happen. Because from what I had read, that thing was DOA on Tuesday. There was nothing happening there, and they all revived it and got it going on. Plus, they wanted that central defender from Sevilla. Sevilla played hardball and held their price, and Chelsea said no. So I think they were kind of like, well, the clock is ticking here. And it was there's your classic deadline day, 11th hour, get the paperwork in. They needed that extension. Like, we didn't know that was actually official until after the deadline closed, which made it even more riveting.
Absolutely. Yeah, that missing out on Jules Koundé, especially when they sent Kurt Zuma packing to West Ham, that might be a problem for Chelsea going forward.
I thought the same. When Zuma was sold, I thought that was going to happen then. They were going to go get him.
Just quietly, guys, I think Kurt Zuma is going to be massive for West Ham. I know he's probably not at that super elite level, but he's definitely 10 times better than anything they've got there at the moment at the central defense position. And yeah, I think he's going to have a big impact on the Hammers.
No, yeah, I think West Ham made a good move getting him, and I'm sure they're very grateful, especially with Europa League coming in.
So, just to clear it up, Paul says Manchester United need a defensive midfielder, maybe Locatelli. Hector suggested. Hector, I know your club threw hundreds of millions of dollars or pounds or euros, whatever the denomination you choose to go for. But if you could just sign one more, who's the player who could just tie it all together and kind of right the ship for Arsenal?
Weirdly enough, I was always emphasizing on a center back, ideally an experienced center back. That's who I've been harping over. I mean, yeah, the midfield needs improvement. I think the attack is fine as long as you commit to Aubameyang and Aubameyang can stop fucking around. And I think, yeah, he has. I mean, either you commit to Lacazette or you commit to Aubameyang. Just pick one. Just pick one of them and just ride with it. But I think the fact that you have so many promising young players like Saka, like Martinelli, like Smith Rowe, even Lakanga, like they show some promise. Like, so I feel that the midfield and the attack could one day be solidified. Obviously, just right now there's not there, but there needs to be a foundation in the back line, and the back line needs a distinct leader. And a player that I've been looking at and for a while now, and is someone that I've kind of had a liking to, is Matthias Ginter over at Borussia Mönchengladbach. He's an experienced center back. He's German, so he already fits with what Arsenal usually likes in the center back spot. And I think he's just he's that smart, savvy leader. Obviously, he was part of Germany's World Cup team. I think that he would be that guy that could come in and at least form some sort of organization in that back line.
Okay, well, these are good choices. So Matthias Ginter from Mönchengladbach, if you're listening, Adu or Mikel Arteta, I know they're avid listeners of the podcast. Take Hector's advice and sign him up. Make it happen. For me, I've gone with a bit of a bolter. I don't know if he would fit directly into Liverpool's first team. As a matter of fact, I know that he wouldn't. But I don't know if you guys remember, it wasn't that long ago, so I hope you remember, Euro 2020, Denmark, Mikkel Damsgaard from Denmark.
That's a good one.
I feel like with Mane and Salah both taking off for the African Cup of Nations, I don't really feel that confident that Minamino and Divock Origi can do a job there. Maybe something with Curtis Jones on the other wing, Damsgaard on the left wing, and then Jota going through the middle might work. I know it's a bit of a contradiction because I was ragging on Liverpool for not signing a central midfielder, but I'm a contradictory man, so I'm sticking with my choice. Mikkel Damsgaard would be my choice for Liverpool.
Everybody who's interesting is complicated, Stewie.
That's very kind that you think I'm interesting, Paul. All right, so that was our very thorough roundup of the transfer window. That's how we do it over here at After Extra Time. And another thing we do over here at After Extra Time is our weekly awards. We've got our guest host helping us out today. Okay, guest first, mate. Give me your goal of the weekend.
Oh man, as soon as I saw this, I knew that this had to be the goal, and that is Mason Greenwood's goal against Wolverhampton Wolves. The thing I have to say when I looked at this is, one, it's a difficult shot, and I mean, granted, there was some assistance when it came to that goal, but that angle is a very difficult angle, and I mean, Mason Greenwood is just having one hell of a start for his season.
He is having a tremendous start, and I do respect your pick, but I have to disagree completely, mate. Kai Havertz's header in front of the cop has got to be one of the most tremendous headers I've ever seen before in my life. I guess the only question you can have is, did he mean it? Was it a fluke? I've got a friend, he'll enjoy this shout out. His name's Tim Joy, and he always tells me it can't be a fluke if you're trying to do it. And that's why Kai Havertz is my goal of the weekend. So in defense of my pick and kind of attacking your pick a little bit, because that's kind of the game here, Kai Havertz, incredible technique. It looked great. It was in front of the cop. Your goal, Mason Greenwood, bit of a goalkeeper. The goalkeeper kind of helped it in a little bit there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but I mean, you gotta look at that angle, man. That angle is always gonna be that big factor. No, you normally don't make those goals, but Mason Greenwood, it went back in the net. That's all that matters. I mean, there's no question behind it. Mine's a goal. No one knows what Kai Havertz did.
Well, I'm gonna have to stick to my guns, mate. I think Kai Havertz is done. Maybe we'll have to get Paul in to be a bit of a tiebreaker here. Oh, you know what? We don't need to get Paul in for a tiebreaker because Mason Greenwood is a Manchester United player.
Yeah, of course.
You might be saying I was kind of pandering.
Yeah, you came into our house and you knew how to treat the host. Exactly. You did a fine job with that.
I did not see that coming at all. You've got me. You guys have got me. All right. Well, congratulations, Mason Greenwood. Not only did you score the goal, the only goal that won the game for Manchester United against Wolves, a very intense celebration, but you've also got the prestigious after extra time goal of the weekend award.
Man, that should have been my argument. They won.
I'm sure the goal of the weekend after extra time award will take pride of place on Mason Greenwood's trophy mantle. Let's move right along, Hector. Player of the weekend. Who takes your pick for player of the weekend?
Yeah, even though I just made a comment about a win, I gotta go to that Chelsea Liverpool game, man. That was a good game, and I gotta give it to Edouard Mendy, man. You have the number of shots that Liverpool win on him, and I believe there were 7 shots on target, and for him to come off with at least 6 saves, he was definitely a big factor for this Chelsea's defense, especially going down a man. So hats off to Edouard Mendy, just a solid goalkeeper, and is keeping Kepa on the bench.
I'm going to have a hard time disagreeing with that one. I'm looking at my pick right now, and I think your pick is actually better, but I'll make my case anyway. I've gone same game, other end of the pitch, Virgil van Dijk. Romelu Lukaku has just romped into the Premier League, and it seemed like he's going to destroy teams. No defenders could stop him. If he doesn't score, he's going to have chance after chance and make life miserable for defenses. Admittedly, it's a bit of a team effort along with Joel Matip, but Virgil van Dijk. This was the big battle for the weekend. It was Van Dijk versus Lukaku, and Van Dijk won that battle hands down for me.
No, man, that's definitely a good argument. I mean, he did hold down Romelu Lukaku. It's a very tall task, and I mean, props to him. But I gotta stick with my guy Edouard Mendy, man. He did it. He stepped up and continues to do what Mendy does. I mean, there's a reason why our podcast gives him so much appreciation. Because probably we get Conte a little bit more love, but Edouard Mendy definitely deserves our love.
Yeah, just the pure fact that I was sitting there watching that game live at stupid o'clock in the morning over here in Australia, and just purely because I was thinking to myself, we're never going to get past this guy. We're never going to beat him. In that second half, he was just making save after save after save after save. I'm thinking I'm going to have to bow to your pick there, Hector. Edouard Mendy. And to go up with your Champions League winners medal, you've got the Player of the Weekend after extra time award. Okay, last one, Hector. match of the weekend?
I feel like this is gonna be a boring pick, but I mean, the game had everything that you wanted. You had red card, you had a penalty, you had an amazing goal by Kai Havertz, and yes, it's the Chelsea versus Liverpool game. I mean, it had me at the edge of my seat throughout the game. I thought this was definitely the two of the best teams in the English Premier League going at it. Two teams that we could be seeing in that top table. So it had everything that you wanted to see. It's still early in the season. We'll see how it ends out for both these teams, but this was definitely a heavyweight bout, and it did live up to the hype.
Just having the fans back, I feel like it made all the difference. You know, it was just this heavyweight battle. Anfield was a cauldron. Chelsea are they're so well drilled defensively and going forward. I don't think they get enough props for their play going forwards, and they seem to be right at the top of their game. Liverpool are just starting to get into that flow of, you know, the 1920 season and the couple of years preceding that when they were kind of dominating football. It was a tremendous game, absolutely. Don't you think the fans made a significant impact to the spectacle of the game?
I mean, there's one thing you want. The one thing that terrifies about Liverpool is the Liverpool fans. They're a big factor into every game, and you know, the presence was clearly there, because that's honestly what had Liverpool kept pushing and keep going. So yeah, the fans were a huge factor. I mean, it also helped that you had two great managers going at it in Tuchel and Klopp. Just overall, it had everything that you wanted in a matchup, and then it helped that the fans were back. It's great to see fans back out there in the stadiums and cheering their team on, because that is a big X factor, especially in Anfield.
Okay, well, I like to go a little bit outside the box with these ones, and I've gone for the Newcastle Southampton game. That didn't really get started. There was a half that was kind of, you know, your lower mid-table classic contest that, you know, would have sent me to sleep at stupid o'clock in the morning over here in Australia. But the second half really kicked off. Callum Wilson got Newcastle on the board. El Yunusi equalised for Southampton. And it looked like we were going to a 1-1 draw, which would have been a fair result, until San Maxim, probably one of the best players outside of the traditional top six at the moment, scored a goal in injury time. And then James Ward-Prowse in the 6th minute of injury time. So, yes, you heard me right, the 96th minute, equalised from the penalty spot for Southampton. It was just, it probably didn't have the excitement of the Chelsea-Liverpool game, but that last 20 minutes, I really enjoyed it.
No, yeah, that was a great game, and it's great to see Ward-Prowse definitely having his moment, especially because there were so many rumors going. Speaking of the transfer window, he was another player that was with the rumors of him going elsewhere, but he stayed with Southampton, and I mean, I think he definitely is enjoying his decision right now.
I think Ward-Prowse is a talent, and if you put him into, you were talking about in the transfer window section, you were talking about the Arsenal midfield lacking a little bit. They could do a lot worse than chucking a James Ward-Prowse in there.
He was a player they were rumored with as well.
As much as I want to give you the clean sweep here, Hector, I'm going to lose all credibility. So I'm sticking my boots in, and I'm going to have to pull it's my podcast card and say Newcastle Southampton win match of the weekend this weekend.
No, I'll bow out. I'll give it to you.
Well, thanks so much, Hector. Players in the Premier League, managers in the Premier League, teams, coaching staff, clubs, fans, everyone stops when the After Extra Time weekly awards come out, and we've just made a few teams and players' days. So thank you so much for your help with that. Jeez, boys, don't you hate the international break? It's the worst.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, at least this one's not so bad in that the first couple of days we have transfer talk, but when we start to get towards the weekend, it's going to suck. And then when you get into that second week, oh, God, you're like doing match previews on like Tuesday because there's just nothing.
Yeah, I mean, well, Spain's down as the World Cup qualifiers, so I mean, at least they're meaningful matches.
That's true. At least it's not Nations League, so I think we can all agree on that. There's something happening. Just a bit of a
unless it's the USA beating Mexico. I mean, then it counts.
Yeah,
So just
especially after last year when like the U.S. couldn't even get a game anywhere for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
just a bit of a sidebar. Talking about the World Cup qualifiers. I don't know if you guys caught this, but Cristiano Ronaldo finally secured that record, the most prolific international scorer in international football.
In the men's side.
Yeah, you don't want to you get your mentions lit up if you got that qualifier.
Hey, look. Insert name FC. We're a Christine Sinclair podcast, so we respect the goat. So
Apologies. Don't come at me on Twitter, please, guys. Cristiano Ronaldo, though, I just thought it was newsworthy that, 111 goals he's now scored for Portugal. All right, boys. That's it for another episode of Extra Time. Thanks, Hector, for coming on and helping us wade our way through the transfer window recap. Don't forget to subscribe to the Insert Name FC podcast. You want to tell your listeners where to find you and when your episodes drop?
Oh, our episodes drop on Fridays. We do have a unique thing with Belly Up Sports where we have a radio type system. So you can listen to us initially at unhingedsn.com. That's where we'll do our premiere. And then immediately after, you can find us on Spotify, Pandora, Apple. And it helps if you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at InsertNameFC. Pretty straightforward. Plus, we do a lot of stuff with social media that we would definitely love everybody's interaction.
Head to Instagram and Twitter. Get involved with Insert Name FC. And it's been a pleasure, Hector. I really appreciate you joining us on the podcast. Hope to have you again. As always, Paul, it's been a pleasure, mate. Have you got anything you'd like to tell all the folks out there?
Just to pick up the book as usual at eckhartspress.com or go to my Twitter at Paul M. Banks. You'll see the link right there in my pinned tweet. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Paul M. Banks. Check out thesportsbank.net. And I will be back later with more book signings / watch parties at different various football pubs, and I'll bring those up week of.
All right, guys. Fantastic. Try not to get too bored over the international break. Get all your latest sports news at thesportsbank.net. Get the book, Transatlantic Passage, How the Premier League Redefines Soccer in America. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.
Today's podcast was brought to you by A Foreign Affair with Edward Green and Wes Bradshaw. They've given up American football to bring the best European soccer coverage that two gents in the States with no connections can. That's A Foreign Affair, the all-new sports show podcast. Get it on the Apple Podcast today.